This is Dead Serious, a show about short horror stories worthy of discussion. I'm Dead Palette, and my favorite version of Jill Valentine is Regina. Today we're taking a look at My Birth by Michael Gira. This episode has been sponsored by Connor Anderson, so thank you for sponsoring my channel and what it is that I do. Let's get right into this. I was born with a taste of my mother's blood in my mouth. The poison her body manufactured during her pregnancy naturally saturated my tiny being. I shared in her feelings as her body mutated into the outward expression of her worst fears, hatred, and most pathological needs that inevitably layered the chiseled contours of her flawless media star physique with slabs of fat and grease so my own body, a parasitic tumor wrapped like a closing fist around her soul, grew in direct relation to her advancing malignancy of her disease, safe and feeding in gentle folds of my mother's rotting core. So that was very intense right off the bat. We're getting a lot of very flavorful, almost purple prosy text, very melodramatic language, kind of hard to make heads or tails of at this point what we're doing. I feel that there's some forced perspective going on, that we're not sure who we are and who the mother is in this situation. But let's press on, because I don't think we got enough information yet. Enclosed in the soft bone of my skull, my brain was expanding. My brain was an expanding incandescent orb that filtered a dim amber light out from behind my eyelids and showed my clutching paws before me, suspended in thick amniotic liquid. That's weird. I always thought that word was ambiotic, but I guess it's amniotic. Okay. I explored the darkness of my crimson world, caressing the sensitive, fibrous walls of my mother's womb with my whiskers and hairless tail. Beneath the water, I heard the lush, multi-layered tones of her voice, serenading me and drugging me, infecting my blood with her identity. My heartbeat mimicked the beat of her song, echoing against the protective walls of her womb. My body fit perfectly inside the body of my mother, my flesh the organic, surrogate expression of the cancer hiding in the meaning of her song. Very surreal so far. I think we're supposed to be getting the idea that we are a fetus that is conscious inside the womb. I'm not sure what direction this is going. There are these feelings of self-loathing within the narrator, the fetus or child or whatever. And I'm not sure exactly why, but this is all very strange. And again, I think we just don't have enough information yet to really pass judgment on what's going on. So let's press on. As I fought my way free from the blackness inside her, I opened up a gushing sea of red with my razor teeth and claws. The sweet taste of oxygen in my mouth with sticky pink jellies that tasted like cigarettes and cognac and cocaine, and the salty sperm of the dark-eyed and muscular men my mother continued to feed upon to the day of my birth, nourishing her metastasizing greed, self-hatred, and me. So I'm guessing what has happened here is we've punctured part of the womb and are making our way to the stomach? This is very bizarre. Anyway, let's keep going. When the latex hands of my midwife reached in for my head to pull me free, I snapped at them and managed to slice through the rubber and into the meat of the thumb. They released me, and as I tried to scratch my way backwards into her hole, I screamed my first scream, a shrill siren of pure animal hatred and defiance. Then the forceps were cold and brutal as they clamped my skull, and I was pulled into the searing blue/white light of the film set. Of the film set. Interesting. High-intensity spotlight, chromium-reflecting sheets in both video and film camera encircled us. My mother laid splayed theatrically on the white slab. Her eyes rolled, her head glazed with the religious ecstasy of her martyrdom. The marbleized reds and purples that pumped from between her legs were a radiant offering in which the midwives anointed themselves to their elbows. They smeared their crisp white frocks with their sacred insides like Dionysian priestesses, reveling in their orgy of slaughter. When I heard my mother howling beautifully, transported by the transcendent pleasure of release and the thrill of performing for their cameras, the surrounding crowd of managers, fashionable hang-oners, video professionals, and a cluster of oiled and shirtless young men looked on in silent rapture. Rising up from my mother's exposed insides was a luxurious, opaque, purple vapor that filled the room with the chocolate-flavored musk of feces, decorated in an aftertaste of lavender and jasmine. So during this whole birth that's taking place, it's being filmed and photographed, and it's not exactly clear why, whether this is a, Hollywood production, or if it's a medical film, documenting a medical procedure, or why this is going on, or whether it's some sort of alien thing where we're taking this footage at like Area 51 or something along those lines. It's very unclear, but there's a lot of religious, quasi-religious terms being used here, ones that are outright religious, like ecstasy and martyrdom and radiant offerings and things of that nature, anointed, these kinds of things. I'm not sure what we're seeking to accomplish here with this story, or why the narrator is conscious, has the ability to perceive what is going on and articulate it. But I think we should press on, because, still about halfway through the story, still don't have quite enough information to make heads or tails of it. Everywhere around us, video monitors showed close-ups of wiry, glistening gray hair and the wrinkled pink skin of my face caught in the polished steel forceps. I raked the air with my jagged, yellow teeth as I squirmed. Then I was passed from midwife to midwife, held up for everyone to see, their long painted nails comb through the hair on my stomach, subduing me with affection. A few cameras panned back and up for long shots above, showing the foreshortened midwives standing knee-deep in a thick cushion of dry ice vapor lit from underneath, holding me up ceremoniously over the belly of my writhing mother. Okay, so if there's dry ice there, I can assume safely that this is some sort of film set, and that maybe whatever kind of bizarre monster we are being excavated from this woman, that maybe we are a real monster of some kind, and the film set is fake, which raises all sorts of questions, but let's go on. The tableau of the film set rose up from the clouds in an updated version of a B-movie scene depicting the gods of old Olympus. I was set and laid out in the shape of a spiral, all cameras and equipment and extras swell as the central performers conformed to the swirling design. At the center of the spiral was my mother, a locus of fiery blood and reddened flesh, radiating its warmth outward into the cold blues of the video scene. The story is doing a nice job of pulling in all five senses, and they constantly are pulling in all five senses very vividly. A lot of very vivid use of color, really setting the stage in what the atmosphere is like, and it's very successful in that regard. The midwives placed me on my mother's belly. I chewed and sucked at her breasts. Her milk was black, with a bitter taste, density, and grit of industrial oil. My tail snapped and switched with pleasure, tracing a stylish, improvised calligraphy along her lower abdomen and inner thigh. Super high contrast, idealized live images of my mother's beautiful face glowed on alternating monitors around the room. One closed up, showing her tongue, an elegant pink worm, working in rhythm with the amplified, slow groove of her song, cradled in the luscious, glossy red wound around her lips. Its movements matched the pre-recorded syllables of her voice exactly. The song was for me, a homage to my birth she would share with her fans throughout the world. Okay, so it's coming into focus that this song isn't something like her heartbeat inside of her womb or something like that, but that it's actual music and that this might actually be a music video or something along those lines. Pressing on. I do have the question of whether this is live or not, because it, shared with our fans throughout the world. I don't know how us, the narrator, knows this. I guess we've been conscious this whole time we've been in the mother. Man, this is so bizarre. As my mother's music cloaked the scene in a voluptuous gauze of synthetic melody, the lightning beneath the layer of fog shifted to shades of dark red ochre, as if the set now floated on a suspended bed of vaporized blood. The midwives, video technicians, and hangers-on staged a choreographed withdrawal into the outer edges of the set, silhouetted in the darkness like patient zombies waiting for their turn at the meal my hemorrhaging mother presented on the white slab. As they watched, I continued to fill myself with her milk, emptying one breast, then feasting on the other, piercing the supple flesh of her stomach with my claws, rhythmically kneading the muscles of her belly as it rose and fell, rocking with erotic pleasure of my feeding. That's the first time the word erotic has been brought up, but it's all been very Freudian and erotic up to this point, very fetishized in a bizarre way. Sort of reminiscent of H.R. Giger's xenomorphs in the Alien movies. Pressing on, a column of glittering sepia light rose up magically towards heaven from the slab. The camera looked down from high above as I nursed, slowly revolving as it descended. My mother held me in her arms and pressed my snout deeper into her breasts. She lifted her face up and licked the grease from my hair, singing to me, singing to the world through me. I love my baby, my darling, in love with me. I love my baby. This body is for you and me. As I fed, I felt my body growing larger, swelling up with the power of her electric, superhuman media star essence. My razor teeth dug through the pliant bone of her chest, seeking out the source of her strength. So it's becoming clear as we wind down on this story that us, the narrator, are going to consume the mother in some way. Anyway, I could smell her orgasm spreading like iodine through her blood in wave after wave of maternal surrender. Now my claws were frantic, tearing through ribbons of buttery flesh. As I ate, my body expanded to the size of a large dog. My hair grew longer, black and oily, spilling over the altar and mixing with the fog. The specters watched, swooning, whispering encouragement. I straddled her, digging deeper. My mouth found her heart. I pulled it free from the cavity in her chest, careful not to tear the blood vessels and arteries or to burst its delicate outer skin, feeling it pulse on my tongue. As she watched, I seductively licked the blood from her own lips. I devoured her precious organ, watching the light leak slowly from her eyes. I can still taste my mother's heart now, voluptuous and ripe, exploding with the sweet flavor of her endless generosity. While consuming her body, I sang a song to the world. I could feel the inhuman richness of my mother's voice rushing like a glorious light from my throat, mesmerizing the cameras and spectators. My lips matched the words to her song perfectly. I watched myself in the corner of my eye, singing and feeding in the television monitor, the perfect visual accompaniment to the music. Each mouthful of my mother's flesh fueled me with the unfillable appetite of transcendent, selfish media god. September 1996. So obviously this is all very surreal and not the kind of thing I would normally cover, but looking into the author of the story, Michael Gira is an American singer-songwriter, musician, author, and artist. He is the main force behind the New York musical group Swans and fronts Angels of Light. He's also the founder of Young Gods Records. So this is some of his creative writing. Obviously, it's very musically inspired, and whenever you're talking about a concert, there is a quasi-religious element to that, and he's obviously exploring that here in this story. All very surreal, interesting for what it is, not the kind of story I particularly care for. It's very eroticized, and I do wonder if it has been used in that way, if this is seen as some sort of erotic literature for people. There are some very weird fetishes in here. This is tackling a lot of them. Definitely an interesting read if you want to check it out. Hopefully you've been reading along, but if you want to check it out, the link is in the description to this story. It's publicly available. I don't think I have too much else to say on this story. It's definitely gotten my mind working and how I could take this as inspiration and not do something like this, but what elements of the story could be borrowed for something else. It's to be admired in the way that it doesn't directly touch on sex through most of it, but does elicit those feelings. Anyway, today's sponsor was Private Browsing. Private Browsing. The NSA totally can't see my Watamote Dojinshi now.